one way of understanding what it is to live an awakened life is that it's a life where we're no longer centered in the cognitive mind. We're no longer centered in the thought stream. And the question that I kind of asked about meditation, do we trust enough to let go of the mind in meditation? It becomes the same question in life. Do I trust enough to let go of the mind as I'm living? And to allow a deeper consciousness, a deeper knowing, a deeper wisdom, a deeper kind of guidance system to start to operate within me that isn't something I can control, and it isn't something I can understand with my mind.
Welcome to Meditation Changes Everything with spiritual teacher Craig Hamilton, a podcast exploring the deeper potentials of meditation practice and how it can change every aspect of human life. This episode is the second in our series exploring the most common obstacles to deep meditation and how we can move beyond them. Today, Craig dives into what may be the greatest challenge for meditators: the busy, restless mind. The mind is our constant companion. It helps us interpret and make sense of the world. But when we sit down to meditate, the mind often feels like it has a will of its own. Thoughts constantly arise, grabbing our attention, which can be a source of frustration for many of us. In this episode, Craig shares 3 key perspectives that can help us stop battling our thoughts and move beyond the mind's noise to discover a deeper, more grounded presence in meditation. We hope you enjoy the show. Here's Craig.
Learning how to relate to the mind in meditation is probably the most universally challenging part of meditation, I would say. It's the thing people struggle with the most, try to understand and get a handle on how to meditate with our mind. Because our mind seems to have a life of its own. It seems we sit down to experience the peace and freedom of meditation, and then thoughts bubble up and seem to automatically grab our attention. Thoughts about the past, thoughts about the future, creative ideas. Things we forgot. All of this seems to parade through our consciousness during meditation when we're just simply trying to meditate. And as I'm sure all of you are aware, the goal isn't trying to silence the mind. The mind is not an enemy of your meditation. Ultimately, meditation in the context of the mind means trusting enough to let go of the mind during meditation. The mind, our thoughts, are such a familiar set of reference points. They're how we make meaning out of the world. They're how we understand what's going on. This constant machinery of describing what's happening, interpreting what's happening, evaluating what's happening, goes on. And to just set that down for a period of time and say, for this period of time, I'm not going to try to know anything. I'm not going to try to figure out what's going on. I'm not going to try to figure out what it means. And I'm not going to try to figure out whether it's good or bad. I'm just going to let my experience happen and not know anything about it. I'll let this moment happen and not know anything. I use the word trust because in the end, it's a kind of trust that if I let go of this familiar way of navigating my familiar reference points, that I'll be okay, that somehow that the meditation will be okay, that I won't be wasting my time here, or that I won't, disappear. So in the end, it's about, do we trust enough to let go of the mind? But there are a lot of different ways that we can work with that and just practice letting go of the mind. But the one other piece I just want to mention by way of context is to tie this back to spiritual awakening itself, because one way of understanding what it is to live an awakened life is that it's a life where we're no longer centered in the cognitive mind. We're no longer centered in the thought stream. And the question that I kind of asked about meditation, do we trust enough to let go of the mind in meditation? It becomes the same question in life. Do I trust enough to let go of the mind as I'm living, and to allow a deeper consciousness, a deeper knowing, a deeper wisdom, a deeper kind of guidance system to start to operate within me that isn't something I can control, and it isn't something I can understand with my mind. It's definitely not the mind. Awakened consciousness and the kind of knowing and higher functioning that it brings is not coming from your thoughts. It doesn't exclude thoughts. Thoughts still come and go. Thoughts are still very helpful. We still need to think about things. We might find we think about things much more clearly when we're not centered in the mind, when we're not, as the traditions say, we're not identified with the mind. We no longer believe ourselves to be the mind. When thoughts come up, we don't think that's me. They're just thoughts arising in the spaciousness of infinite awareness that is our true nature. Learning to let go of the mind in meditation is much easier than learning to let go of the mind in life, which is why meditation in this context is so powerful, because we can sit and do practices to really step beyond the mind, experience who we are beyond the mind, experience being beyond the mind for an extended period of time. We can do all of that without any downside, without, letting go of the mind in life is more challenging. There's more risk to it. So it's good that we practice it deeply in meditations, but then hopefully it starts to ripple into life. Hopefully having the experience of being beyond the mind for an extended period of time, then it starts to show up naturally where you realize, I don't need to also figure everything out all the time in life. I can let life flow. I can respond spontaneously. I can not know beforehand. I can let go of trying to premeditate things. It gradually starts to open to this much less mind-centric way of being. So I spoke earlier about how certain thoughts seem very compelling. They feel like, they need some attention. I mentioned creative thoughts, or solving a problem, or for remembering something you've forgotten, or, processing some past event, trying to get insight about it. All of these things, they have their own little gravity to them. They're like, hey, pay attention to me. I'm important. And similarly, this is just true of content in consciousness in general, the objects in consciousness, perceptions, sensations, feelings, thoughts. Doesn't matter what that object is. There are a lot of things that come up in our awareness, in our consciousness, that seem like they need some attention. And I'm bringing this up because here we are keeping it really simple. The simplicity is, don't give any attention to any of it. Just let it come and go. Keep your attention on that which is not the mind. Just don't give your attention to the mind, and then see what reveals itself. It's a very simple instruction. It applies universally to all thoughts. And now I've just broadened it to all content. But I'm just highlighting that, okay, that's very simple. But in practice, what we often notice is certain thoughts in this case. Sometimes it's feeling, sometimes it's a sensation. They seem like they need you to do something with them or about them. For instance, let's say there's a lot of discomfort. It feels like you have to make that discomfort go away. Let's say there's a thought that feels like it's a thought about something in your life that's unresolved, maybe in a relationship with another person, and there's this ongoing tension and you're starting to think about it. And that feels like, well, I should, it's showing up in my meditation. It's distracting me. I sure ought to, I need to do something about it. I need to work it out. I need to get some insight into it. I need to get some clarity about it, or I need to get some resolution with it. Like, it's here and it's not going away. So I need to do something about it. And it feels like I have to do something about it now in my meditation in order to get it out of the way so that I can meditate. And that can apply to all kinds of different thoughts in different ways and different inner scenarios. But what I want to really, the challenge before us, and also the freedom and the invitation in this, is that actually you can apply this universally, like whether or not that issue with that other person needs to be worked out and resolved and clarified and whatever. In your practice of the meditation right now, the sort of mandate, the injunction is to not give it any attention and to not work it out and to not try to resolve it and not try to get any clarity about it. And that's true for anything that arises. Leave it all alone. So like, that's very freeing because you don't have to decide, well, is this thought something that needs attention? Whereas this one, maybe I can dismiss. It's like all thought gets the same treatment. How freeing. But I'm saying it's also challenging because particularly the thoughts that seem very compelling and really in need of some attention, it's going to be harder for those to just be so simple. But what we find when we do this, even for a little bit, if we even do it for a few minutes where we're really, really practicing, immediately start to go, oh, what a relief. I don't have to, I don't have to do anything with that right now. I get to be free from it right now, even if there's a point at which I still have to deal with that thing. So I invite you to embrace the freedom of not knowing, of not needing to know, and of not needing to work anything out or figure anything out or solve any of your problems or know anything at all. And hopefully that can help you apply this universally to anything that's coming up.
Most meditators, from beginners to experts, are probably familiar with the inner narrator. It's that voice that seems to be an almost constant companion during our practice, commentating on our experience. So what is that voice in our heads? Is it the voice of our ego, our higher self, or neither of the above? In this segment, Craig illuminates the true nature of these inner voices and how we can keep them from taking control of our meditation.
It's definitely not always the ego because, at least the way I would use the term ego here, I'm speaking to a very particular kind of function in the psyche. And I'm not going to give a big discourse on ego, so ego, in one sentence, the way I would talk about it is that it's our self-image, our self-concept, our story about ourselves that we defend against threat. So we have a story and it's a defended story. We want to keep it intact because it's how we, navigate the world from this knowledge of who I am. I'm this person. So that's kind of what I mean by ego. And it's, Yeah, it's a fairly conventional definition, but people use that term differently in different contexts. But anyway, so a voice isn't necessarily ego at all. Sometimes it is. If it's an ego voice, it's going to be more about you, probably. How am I doing? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Oh, look, I'm really enlightened. Oh, I'm never going to get this right. Those are the kind of ego voices, if you will, typically. I'm great. I'm terrible. This means I'm great. This means I'm terrible. Somewhere in between. Story, me story. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean, the fact that it might not be ego doesn't necessarily mean it's like the voice of your higher self either, right? Like if you think about voice, voices, I would kind of say, if you think about an inner voice, it's just one of the ways thought shows up, if you will. It's one of the forms that thought takes, and it's neutral, it's good, it's bad, it's indifferent, it's all kinds, it's anything and everything. So without, in meditation, the way I would say to relate to any voice is to kind of the same way we would relate to any thought or feeling or sensation or experience, which is at least, take the meditations we're doing here this month. It's like, don't make any meaning out of it. Don't latch onto it. Don't try to make it go away, but don't also focus on it and get all interested in it and try to engage with it. It's kind of a very, this relaxed posture that we're taking of just relax is kind of, I don't know, I have room for everything. Oh, it's interesting. The voice saying those things. Okay. No, neither here nor there, just spacious, room, open, and look, sometimes a voice might say something that inspires you or touches you very deeply. Maybe that is, in that case, an inspired, just like we'll have inspired thoughts, we'll have inspired creative ideas, whoosh, So it's sort of like, think of thought and voices and imagery, all of it, kind of any content. Think of it as kind of a neutral medium that can be used by a lot of different forces in the psyche. It can be used by your ego. It can be used by the highest, deepest, most inspired part of you. It can be, just a place where raw creativity comes through. It can be a place where your kind of deepest, worst fears all suddenly blow up. And, it's kind of a neutral medium, influenced by everything. That's why in meditation, we're so neutral toward that medium. Because if we're anything other than neutral toward all content, we're going to spend our whole life just trying to interpret it. What does it mean? Was that my higher self? Was that my lower self? Should I trust that? Should I not trust that? Is that, and then we're not meditating. We're paying attention to all the ups and downs on the surface. So in meditation, we have this freedom to go, I have no idea what the content means. I'm just letting it all happen and experiencing it all and not doing anything about it. What a rare thing. Because in life, we need to interpret what voice to listen to. In life, we need to know which thoughts are, intelligent, rational thoughts to listen to and which ones are just totally bizarre and we should absolutely not follow. But in meditation, we have this freedom, and that's part of what opens the way to discernment and wisdom and clarity and all that.
If the approach to meditation we've been exploring today inspires you, you're invited to tune in to a 90-minute online workshop Craig will be hosting called Meditation 2.0, The Miracle of Direct Awakening. In the workshop, he'll share a powerful new approach to meditation practice and guide you in a series of brief meditation experiments so you can experience it for yourself. You can listen to that at freemeditationworkshop.com. That's freemeditationworkshop.com. Meditation requires us to find a way to disengage from our thoughts. But what happens when a flow of creative, insightful ideas suddenly emerges in the midst of our meditation? In this next segment, Craig answers a question on this topic and explores the unique challenge of not engaging with the mind, even when our thoughts are exciting, important, and deeply good.
So Walter's basically saying he's working on a book project that he's writing, and that has him very intellectually stimulated and engaged. And because of that, he's finding it hard to let go of the mind in meditation. And, and this isn't just a challenge for creatives, really. This particular thing that Walter's bringing out, I think it can happen for all of us, but particularly anybody who's kind of got, a lot of problems to solve in your life, or a lot of if you're entrepreneurial and you're trying to build something, so there's constantly new ideas, that you want to enact, or you're a creative at, doing creative work, or, many other things, but probably engineers who are trying to, puzzle things out. I'm sure many different types of people experience this kind of thing. And it can, but here's the thing, the obvious answer is also a simple answer. And so I'm sure you want more than that, but let's just draw that out first. The obvious answer is, well, of course, having an active, stimulated mind is going to be more challenging than you sit down to meditate, which is about not being involved in your mind from one point of view. It's about not engaging in thought, not knowing, letting go of that whole world. Of course, it's going to be challenging because you've got so much momentum of thinking all the time and really working with the mind. So great. So it's harder. So that means you have to meditate more, and you have to do it with more commitment and more humility and more kind of determination and intention to really do it. But, think about it. We're only saying, hey, take half an hour a day, or, an hour a day, and just set all that aside. You've got the other, 16 waking hours of your day to do that. Wouldn't it be good to just let it go for a little while? So I think that's probably pretty simple and reasonable. And so the more than that you probably want to hear is this. Probably the reason that you find it hard, or the reason it seems like inherent in your question, it's almost like, gosh, it's not fair. You're asking me to not know. And, clearly my mission work calls me to know, and it seems like an unreasonable act almost, or something. And so we're looking for the shortcut. So I'm guessing the reason why that is, and this is particularly this way with kind of creative tasks or real problems that we have to solve. Like sometimes we have a real situation in our life that we haven't solved, a big problem, a big dilemma. That can be the same way, because the challenge is then, whether it's a big problem to solve, or like a big creative work, writing, where it kind of writes itself in your mind throughout the day. The trick is actually, the reason that we find those extra hard is because there's a part of us that really, it's because we're ambivalent about really letting go of the mind. And so when if you're sitting in meditation, you're working on that book, and, you're puzzling it all out and working it all out. And then you're sitting in meditation, and a great idea comes up for your book, which they will, because there's all this space. You're sitting in meditation, and this great idea, I've been trying to figure out how to start that chapter. Bam! Suddenly the answer comes, or, an idea, or the life problem, or, work problem you're trying to solve, and bam, an answer, and the seed of an answer starts to germinate. And the trick then is, it's not so much, it's so hard because of the momentum of thinking. It's that I really am more invested in solving my problem, or I'm more invested in getting this creative work done, or, taking it the next step, than I am in discovering the mystery of my own inner being and true nature, and making room for something beyond all of that to begin to come through and animate me. It's like it actually gets down to our core intention. Do I really want to awaken? How interested am I in what's beyond the mind? How much do I care about the higher potential of all this?
And it's in those moments what kind of gets revealed to us is like, oh, really, I just want to solve my problem. Really, I just want to get my creative work done. That feels like a higher priority in the moment when it comes, because we're so invested in it. So again, and it's not to feel bad about ourselves for that. This is just the nature of what's getting revealed in these moments. But essentially, the only real solution to that, because there's not like some gimmick, like, well, at that moment, what you need to do is, take the idea and put it on a little mental piece of paper and then file it in your mind and then come back to the practice. I mean, we could come up with all kinds of gimmicks, but the reality is it's like you've got to really want to meditate, a little bit more than you want to solve any creative problem or engage any of those ideas. And that means you have to value that opportunity that the time in meditation represents. And if you really get to, through contemplation, through reflection on the importance of it, on the significance of spiritual practice, we come to a place where we just know, I have this hour or this half hour to do this practice, and this is by far more important than any great idea that could come during that time. Then we'll be in a place where even when the great ideas well up, we can just leave them alone, because we're more passionate about the unknown than we are about the known. And it's my experience that if we do this and we let ourselves, plant our stake in the infinite or set our anchor in the unknown, we'll find that the creativity and flow in our life multiplies as a result, and all of those creative questions and problems will get solved in their own way, but not in meditation.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we hope you'll share our show with others. And please subscribe and rate us wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you have a minute to write a short review on your podcast app, we would deeply appreciate your support. You can stay connected to the show by subscribing to our newsletter at meditationchangeseverything.com. Each week, we'll send you new audios and videos from Craig, and we'll also let you know when we release new episodes of the show. For a deeper experience of Craig's approach to meditation, consider joining our Awakened Life membership program. Each month, you'll receive in-depth teachings and guidance, including a meditation workshop, 4 guided meditations, and a live online retreat with Craig. And when you register today, you can receive your first month for 50% off. Go to awakenedlifemembership.com to learn more and enroll. That's awakenedlifemembership.com. Check out our show notes for links to all the ways you can stay in touch with Craig's work. Meditation Changes Everything is created by Craig Hamilton, Susan Fries, Morgan Dix, Stephanie Murphy, Will Bowman, and Richard Klein. From all of us, thank you for tuning in.